All right. So last time we talked about making a decoration on your curb, right? So you have your curb in front of your house, looks like this, and you could get your favorite mascot, like for your team, put on here. So for me, it'd be something with the U of U, right? And they decided that rectangles work better than squares. And we talked about the length and the widths. So they're saying, well, if this is the width, then we'd want our length to be a certain amount, maybe that width plus 8. And then we showed how you could multiply those together to get an equation that represents the area of your little icon, okay, of your little logo. And we also know how much paint. We're saying each logo has 48 inches squared of paint. So that's what we did last time. And then we got to here. It says, consider Carlos's quadratic equation where n is 8. So what we said last time was Carlos thinks that if the width of the logo is x, the perfect dimensions for the length would be x plus 8. And then we multiplied that out and we said x times x plus 8 is supposed to be 48 inches of paint. We distributed, and then we subtracted it and got it equal to 0. So here's his equation. Okay? You can plug in any width and it'll tell you the area if the length was the width plus 8. Okay, we want to know a solution for that, the one that'll actually make it 48. So it says, how can we work with functions like y equals x squared plus 8x minus 48 to help us solve the quadratic equation x squared plus 8x minus 48 equals 0? Describe at least 2 different strategies you might use and then carry them out. Well, what we decided to do last class was to factor it and graph it. So, just like on your, I forgot I can't get up. Just like on your yellow worksheet, we figured out what multiplied to make negative 48 and added to make positive 8. And it was negative 4 and 12. So then what we did was we had one equation, a big one that we couldn't solve. So we factored into 2 smaller equations, which we set equal to 0. We found out the perfect width would be 4 or negative 12. Can you have a negative 12 width? No. So we said the answer was 4. The other way to do it would be to graph it. Once you factor it, you know it crosses the x-axis at the opposite of those numbers. Okay, so we've always been solving. You just didn't know it. All right, so here's your task. Now consider Clarita's equation where n equals 13. So x squared plus 13x minus 48 equals 0. Describe at least 2 different strategies you might use to solve this problem, then carry them out. Your strategy should give you solutions to the equation. So we set up here, you could factor it or graph it, and you'd need to factor to graph. I would guess that your group is going to want to factor it. Okay? But you could also complete this square and solve by taking square roots. Talk with your group, and you're basically, if you want to make it easy, doing what you did for number 4. Go. Okay, you could have completed the square. The thing that we did with Optimus quilts, where we needed to make the length and the width, right? And then once we did that, you could have solved by taking square roots, like 3.5. But it gets really yucky, so I just wanted to point that one out. To me, that's not the best strategy for this one. So you don't actually have to write that one down. But, okay, Alex's group said that they made a table, okay, and that they factored. So I'm going to have Piper's group tell me, I'm pretty sure you guys did that as well. What was on your table? And which one did you pick? Okay. We have another group that has which ones they picked. Yeah. Why? Perfect. They multiply to make negative 48 and add to make 13. And then our last step for time, I'm going to remind you, we set the factors equal to 0, because if you're going to multiply two things together to get equal to 0, at least one of them has to be 0. And then we would solve. Oh, I keep forgetting I'm recording today. I need to stay here. Plus 3, negative 16, and 3. Skip this solving part and just saw the answer. Yeah, why? Oh, you looked at the factor chart, so you just knew it was 16 and 3. And then, did you skip it down to negative 16 and 3? How come? Why? When we were doing that in the past, what were we looking for? You're 100% right. We were trying to find where it crosses the x-axis. And we know that it's always the opposite of what's in parentheses. In the past, we were just automatically skipping this solving part. So that's okay. Good job. All right. You could have also just grabbed it to look, and in the real world, it would have had to be 3 inches, right? Because you can't have negative 16 inches. All right, feedback. How do you feel about solving this one by factoring? Thumbs. This is your 3.6.1 homework. Give it a thumb, I want to see it. Okay, so guys, here's the deal. Remember, after much disagreement, Carlos and Karina agreed to design the curve size logo to fit in a rectangle that is 6 inches longer than it is wide. So, draw that rectangle with your group real quick. 6 inches longer than it is wide. Draw a rectangle. X is the width and the length is 6 inches longer. And compare it with your neighbor. Okay, look at your neighbors and see if you have the same thing. Okay, did you guys have this picture right here? Yes or no? Shake your heads. Did you have this? Yeah. The width is x and the length is x plus 6. And based off of yesterday, we know that they want 48 inches, squared inches of paint on the inside. So yesterday we turned that into the standard form of the equation by multiplying out width times length. Please do that with your team. Multiply it out. You've got width times length. Get the standard form of the equation, and then find A, B, and C. Two tasks ago, we were solving by completing the square and taking square roots. And remember, we solved if we let everything be variables. We solved it for x and we got this magic equation and we never used it. Now we're going to use it. Okay, now we are going to use it. So here's how we do it. I'm going to show you this one, and then your group will do the next one. It says multiply out to standard form. We did that, step 1. Identify A, B, and C. Okay, so for time's sake, I'm going to remind you, would you guys agree that our A is 1? Okay, it's in front of the x squared. Our B is 6, it's in front of the x. And our C is negative 48. Okay, so we've done step 1 and step 2. And I think that I did a bad job explaining to you what I wanted for step 1. Step 1 says multiply out to standard form and set it equal to 0, which is what you did right here. And I think because so many of you struggled, it's because I did a bad job explaining what I wanted. All right, substitute A, B, and C into the formula. So this formula right here, I want all of you to write it down, and then below it, I want you to write it like this. I want you to write the outline, just the outline. Do that right now, and then hold up your pencil. This formula is so amazing because instead of having to do all this work like we did up here, either solving by completing the square and square roots, or factoring, or graphing, we can identify what A, B, and C is, put it into this equation, and we're done. It's like magic. So here's the deal. B goes here. So our B is a 6 and a 6. A goes on the bottom and right here. And C goes right here. So that was step 3. Any questions where I got those? All right. Step 4, calculate all the values under the radical. So what you need to do is multiply all of these together. And I'm going to show you using the parentheses. Parenthesis 6 parentheses squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 48. And you should have gotten 228. Make sure you can do that. For time's sake, I would normally make you do it, but we get 228. So my equation becomes negative 6 plus or minus, this became 228, and then divided by 2. Write this down right now. Get this on your paper. I'm giving you 10 points for this today. Guess what, guys? That's the answer. Because the next step, you would try to take the square root of 228. But it's a decimal. So you could make a tree and simplify it, but the answer is a decimal. Okay, and so I don't want to deal with that. This is your answer. Now, let's try a different one. Okay, one that you will have a nice answer. So the idea is let's go back and try this one. We did it by factoring. Let's go back, actually. Is this the one that we just did? No, yeah. We did it by factoring and solving, and what did we get our answer from? Sorry, pause. I'm gonna, this one, the answer is really negative 6 plus the square root of 288, or 228 divided by 2. and negative 6 minus the square root of 228 divided by 2. Let's try to do this one. We already know the answer to this one is negative 16 and 3. Okay? We already know that that's the answer to this one. But let's try it here. So number 7, I'm going to have you change it. I apologize. Number 7, I'm going to have you change it to be this problem. 1x squared plus 13x minus 48. And I want your group to try to solve that as far as you can using the quadratic formula. So plug stuff in and simplify following the steps. A is 1, B is 13, and C is negative 48. So A, B, and C, right? A is the number in front of x squared. B is the number in front of 3x. And C is the constant, the thing by itself. So now you put them in where the formula says. It says negative B, so negative 13, plus or minus the square root of 13 squared minus 4AC all over 2A. You have to put the parentheses here. Because if you don't, and that number was negative, the calculator will give you the wrong answer. You also should always write the negative in here. Because if this 13 had been negative, people forget the second negative. Question. Oh, okay. Thank you. So we have that. Now this is what you need to put in your calculator. This thing under here is called the discriminant. We'll talk about it more. It tells you the type of answer you're going to have. No square root, excuse me, parenthesis. 13 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 48 with a little negative, not a big negative. Big negative, little negative. And if you hit enter, oh, it is 361. I'm sorry, I didn't think about that. It is 361. I wasn't thinking about it. I knew it was a perfect square. Okay, and then you still have the negative 13 and the 2. Raise your hand if you got 361. Good. Now the next step is to do the square root of 361, and you get 19. Second x squared button, so I have negative 13 plus 19 and negative 13 minus 19. Okay, square, and so if this yellow number is a perfect square, you'll always get two nice answers. We already know the actual answers are negative 16 and 3. Well, here's how we got it. We're going to do the plus first. Negative 13 plus 19 divided by 2. Negative 13 plus 19 is 6. Divided by 2 is 3. Oh, check. That's one of our answers. And negative, now we're going to do the minus 13 minus 19 divided by 2. And you would get a negative 32 over 2, which is negative 16. Check. That's our other answer. Okay? So what's so nice about this is you just put it in the formula and you're done. You don't have to complete the square. You don't have to factor. You don't have to graph. You just have your answer.